All right, good evening. I am doing a review here for my newest delivery. I ordered these at the same time that the Planetary Squared came, and I just got them, and that's the Oakley Neo Jackets. You can see the box is quite large. Hello, Harold. I ordered two pairs. I waited for the what is called the satin chrome with sapphire, and I did the matte black with prism black. And so we'll go ahead, and if you haven't seen them on yet, they are quite sharp. To me, they remind me of a cross between the Crosshair 4060 model from 2012 that's still currently in production and an X Metal. It has the protrusion here for the inset deep set lenses, similar to what's on the Lateralis. They are definitely unmistakably Oakley with the unique case, heritage style like arms, and they are a size large. So let's get into some of the design elements here. Unlike a lot of the recent metal frames, as Oakley has been doing a lot of new stuff here, these are aluminum. They're not C5. And as a result, they're more stiff than your standard C5 metal frames that you've gotten in the past, your Gauge 8, Crosshair, the ejector, what's the other? There's a couple, but then you've got when they haven't been, they've been titanium, the TIs. So this is probably our first metal frame we've had in a long time that's new in the aviator style since the Contrail, I think. And these are like very pleasant surprise. They've got a nice high wrap, full 8 base curve. You can see how far back the nose pads sit here, and this is all aluminum here, this thick bridge and everything. You have unobtainium, Oakley's proprietary rubber grips in the arms here that feeds through. They don't wrap around it. It actually has a pass through to it. So that's different. And then you have the unobtainium here in the nose area, in the bridge. So one of the things you'll note, if you have a wider head, out of the box, they're fairly narrow. These black ones I've modified a little bit to meet the width of my head ever so slightly. You got to be careful though, but they are, you can't adjust them just like you could your C5 frames. However, this is a lot stiffer bend. So unlike let's just say I ordered a Crosshair right now, if this was too narrow, I could put some pressure here on the nose bridge, pull and bend it a little bit. This aluminum is a much more rigid, where I can't really do that. It's thicker, it's a heavier duty material than whatever their C5 was made of. But you see how narrow this distance is between the edges of the stems. This is a lot tighter fit out of the box, even though they used a monoshock system. So you've got that single shock where the stem is disconnected from the frame and just held together by that pliable shock. Gives you some flex, but you can further adjust these arms here. I haven't tweaked these yet on the stems, but I did on my on this pair, but I did already on my black. I just kind of straightened them up still kept the natural arc, but straightened them up ever so slightly so that I could, they'd be more comfortable for my size of my head. And it doesn't take much. So this is one though that I definitely recommend you try on in store before you buy if you've got a narrower or a larger head diameter, because otherwise they are going to be very tight. They come, you can see here, to the back pretty nicely, but depending on how long your head is and then how wide your head is, they may not be very comfortable for you. And so I went to the store in Denver when I was looking at the Planetary Squared. I had already pulled the triggers on these at a whim, pretty sure that I was going to like them looking at the measurements, but I was prepared to return them in the event that they weren't going to work for me width-wise. And I was happy to see that I could adjust them, because the stems are at least thin enough you can tweak on them and get the frames adjusted to your liking. So The one thing I'll say that is a negative compared to normal, the majority of their metal frames in recent years, these nose pads are obviously not adjustable. These did not come with like an Asian fit style or a low bridge. They just have one installed and there's no spare, so I don't know if they'll be offered later or if it's just going to be a separate accessory that'll allow you to adjust the nose pads if you needed to. For me, they actually sit pretty much right where they need to, but if you have a wider nose, I don't know how that's going to work, because this distance in the bridge here honestly is not very wide. It's quite narrow, which is going to bring them a lot closer to your eyes, depending on how big your nose is. They'll stop either further out or further in, and that'll dictate kind of how they fit and feel. They definitely are eye-catching with this unique stem and honestly very unique lens shape. The majority of your Oakley frames, they're not quite round and they're not quite square. They're hybrid. It's like an elongated oval or an elongated similar version of like the Mars. How the Mars and some of the over the top had that round perfect circle lens. These start as a circle, and it's like they took the circle and they just stretched it a little bit to make these, and they have a nice wrap to them, but at the same time, so they're like squared off here but rounded when it comes to the bridge, and rounded on the outside, giving them a nice beautiful curve, and wrap, but good coverage height wise. They cover from the top of my eyebrows all the way down. They rest just right at where my cheeks start. So yeah, and the majority of my Oakley frames, the prism etching is on the bottom, and these, it's in the top here in the corner. So if you've never had a pair like that, that'll be different. The Oakley icons are inset, and then to adjust or replace the lenses, they kind of take from that design principle they used for the Mag series, for the X Metal series, where you've got this barrel here where the seam comes together on the frame, and there's a screw in that barrel hole, and you'll just loosen that, and that's gonna not just pull down easily, but it'll loosen enough for you to pop that lens out and pop in a replacement when time comes. And the various third-party replacement lens makers start making them. See Line Gear, because Line Gear can make base 8, so they should be able to make these. I'm gonna talk to Sean about that, get some emerald lenses made for these. Since it does appear that'll be doable. And so whoever sends a pair off to Fuse first or Revent, once they cut that master, we'll be able to order replacement lenses en masse for anything that's not currently in production. Now, we'll say it's, for these metal frames, Oakley had a nice lunch assortment of colors. We've got tungsten, we've got indigo, prism, black polarized, 24K, sapphire, and black. I think that's all of them for right now. Yeah, I'd love to see an SI release of this matte black, and either a black side, and all blacked out, or with Prism Maritime. I think they'd look really sharp with that, or Shallow Water even, or Prism Road. Again, I think they're they're definitely secure frame, and I think the only thing for me that's going to take a little getting used to is this more rigid straight bridge. I wish it curved down a little bit to more like the traditional Aviator, but it's definitely sharp. Very, 2026 is starting off as a really nice year with what Oakley's giving us. They come in the Gen 2 case, sport case, the collector or protective case, which is that, nylon neoprene-like looking fabric with the sewn seam here. If you have the older ones, the older cases, that even though they had that carbon fiber hard shell on the outside, they just covered the seams with a sticker that's felt. This is what I would consider to be a much more polished product of a case, higher quality zipper and external seal and everything. I do miss the carbon fiber, don't get me wrong, but this is a nice replacement case in the Gen 2 model. And then they come with the typical microfiber bag, but there's no, like I said, there's no spare lens There's no, it's not lens, there's no spare nose pieces and no spare arm rubbers. So if you end up needing replacements, you'll have to go through Oakley's parts store once these get populated in there. They're not in there yet because they just released. That usually takes a little bit of time, maybe a month or two. So if you did get a pair and you like them, I'd love to hear what you think. And if you don't like them, I'd love to hear what you think. Again, it's definitely different. This pass through of the unobtainium in the stem that, you know, basically goes in between the arm is different. Usually the socks, ear socks slide over on the stem. This time they actually are passive and they pass through. So, but you know, the art of this frame, the lines, the curves, the aggressive opening here, all definitely are eye-catching, unmistakably Oakley at this point, and it's nice to see a return to like their heritage and more aggressive design styles. Between this, the Plantaris Squared, the Neo Forma, which I tried on in store, they all have, you know, nods to the heritage of what the brand was, its glory years. And so after the 50-year mark came and passed last year, it seemed like they kind of, honestly, they were kind of boring for a 50-year anniversary of such a amazing company. But you have to think this was all happening in the background. So after the 50th anniversary, they've been releasing a lot of really nice pieces. So that being said, that's about all I got. The one thing, like I mentioned with the lateralis, and you'll see it in person, is how deep that shelf is under, and aggressive looking. That shelf is under the, you know, the eye orbital there for those lenses. So hopefully you can get a color way that you like, and I think they're going to work well with a hat. Let me put my, got my Oakley. It's like cap I wear frequently, and they should fit very and work very well with the cap of the bridge and everything, the way they come out and down. They do work very well. You know, the bridge is low enough, it doesn't hit, where even with me with my curved bill, it fits nicely inside this area. So all right, that's what I've got on these. Really impressed, liking them a lot, and until next time.